Following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TFangy coming to you with what will hopefully be a quick and successful video. And tonight we're gonna... I have a special Transformers figure that I'm reviewing. And as the title of the video has revealed, it is the Transformers Armada Unicron action figure. So recently I did a top 10 a video in which I showed off the top 10 Transformers figures I purchased in 2024 that came out in years prior, and Unicron made top of the list because I honestly never thought I was going to have Unicron in my Transformers collection. I've been wanting an action figure of him for years now, and I was finally able to get a hold of the original 2003 Armada Unicron action figure for what I felt was a decent price. So here he is here tonight, and this is what this review is going to focus on. Now, the reason why I decided to make Unicron the next Transformers figure I review on my channel is because I looked at my channel recently, and Unicron's review will mark the 666th video on my Transformers channel. And the reason why I brought out Unicron to do this video is because, for those of you who are unaware, 3 number 6s is associated with evil and incarnate, and what it basically is that 3 number 6s means the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast in the Bible, in the book of Revelation, it says that those who have 3 number 6s on their foreheads will be enemies of God, and they will be thrown along with the devil into a lake of fire, and evil will be destroyed forever and ever, and God and his children will be the only ones to witness the end times. So yeah, so because of the mark of the beast in the Bible, 3 number 6s has come to be a sign of evil, and that's what Unicron is. Unicron is the Transformers equivalent of the devil. He is evil incarnate, and that's why he's known as the Chaos Bringer. So yeah, he's technically not a Decepticon. He is just the source of most of the evil in the Transformers universe, Unicron. And yeah, that is basically who he is. He is the big bad guy of the Transformers franchise. The poster bad guy character is Megatron, since he was the first main villain created for the Transformers franchise back in 1984. But when Unicron was introduced in the Transformers Generation 1 movie 2 years later in 1986, he overtook the title of most evil and most sinister of all the Transformers characters. So yeah, Unicron has definitely made his mark on the Transformers franchise since his debut in 1986. So for some quick background information here on the Armada Unicron action figure, Unicron holds the title of being the first ever Transformers action figure released at mass retail for a price tag of $50. And when he was released in 2003, it was unheard of for a mainline Transformers action figure to retail for $50. Before Armada Unicron's released, all mass retail Transformers action figures had a retail price tag of about $40 to $45 at most. So Unicron was the first action figure to hit the $50 mark. And Unicron, as you can tell by me holding him here, I have to go really far back to get him in full view of the camera. You can't move the camera back a bit as well to get him in, try and get him in full frame. But yeah, there is a Unicron on in full frame finally. So yeah, he is enormous, and Unicron actually introduced a new size class of Transformers action figure when he was released back in 2003. It's a size class that Hasbro hasn't used for several years, and so it's a now defunct size class that isn't used anymore. And Unicron ushered in the size class of Transformers known as Supreme Class sized. So what defines Supreme Class sized Transformers action figures is, depending on how you had their legs positioned and how far you had them sprawled out, Supreme Class sized Transformers action figures stand roughly 14 to 15 inches tall. And of course they had a retail price tag, depending on where you lived, of originally $50 when the size was introduced with Unicron in 2003. And by the time Supreme Class sized Transformers stopped being released regularly by Hasbro, Oh, they had a retail price of about $60. Their Supreme Class size Transformers being released at mass retail as mainline figures. The last mainline Supreme Class size Transformers action figure, if my memory is working correctly, was the Supreme Class size Transformers animated Optimus Prime figure that was released in 2008. A lot of Transformers fans and collectors, myself included, were hoping that animated Optimus Prime would be joined perhaps by a Supreme Class sized action figure of the animated version of Omega Supreme, but that never happened. And there have been a handful of Transformers action figures that have been released in more recent years that have been the Supreme Class size, but most of them have been repaints of the first Supreme Class sized action figures that were created. And in fact, on that note, the Armada Unicron action figure here, Unicron was such a groundbreaking action figure when he was released in 2003 that his mold has been used at least, if I remember correctly, 10 times according to the Transformers Wikipedia. It's been, so yeah, this was such a groundbreaking action figure when Hasbro and Takara Tomy designed it back in 2003. They figured this was the perfect Unicron action figure, and so for the 2 decades of the 2000s and the 2010s, this was the largest transforming Unicron action figure to exist. There were a handful of other Unicron figures that were released, but they were smaller, and some of them either didn't transform, or they didn't transform into a planet the way, which is the intended alt mode of Unicron. And within Transformers fiction, that's one of the defining traits of Unicron. Unicron is a planet-sized transformer that turns into a planet, which is why he's got these mechanical tentacles hanging off the back of him. They form the rings of his planet mode. And this is a defining trait that distinguishes the Armada version of Unicron compared to his G1 counterpart, is that his planetary rings are gray on Armada Unicron and they're orange on Generation 1 Unicron. I think the most recent version of this mold was the green false Minicon Unicron on figure that was released, I believe it was released either last year in 2023 or this year in 2024. But yeah, this was such a groundbreaking Unicron action figure. It wasn't until the HasLab Unicron figure was released in 2022 that we finally had another Unicron, giant-sized Unicron action figure that was not a repaint or a retool of the Armada Unicron action figure here. And what I was trying to say, maybe before my train of thought derailed inside my brain, is that the Supreme Class size Transformers, you could argue they were precursors to the modern Titan Class size Transformers action figures. Supreme Class Transformers are larger than most modern day Commander Class Transformers action figures, even though they retailed for about $20 to $30 less than Commander Class Transformers action figures do. So, for those of you wondering if there have ever been a size class of Transformers action figures in between Commander and Titan Class Transformers figures, there are Transformers in between that size, because that is what the Supreme Class size is. Now, focusing here on Armada Unicron himself, he was such a well-received action figure when he was released. On the Transformers Wikipedia, it states that he actually won the award for Best Toy of the year 2003, because that many people were going around trying to buy up, find, and get Unicron and add him to their collections. Even Generation 1 Transformers fans and collectors had never had a transforming Unicron action figure until Armada Unicron came out. So even Generation 1 Transformers fans and Beast Wars fans who weren't necessarily into Armada and the Unicron trilogy went out looking for Unicron, because he is just very imposing on the shelf compared to other Transformers action figures, and even compared to Generation 1, especially compared to Generation 1 Transformers action figures, with the top articulation that the designers at Hasbro and Takara had working with at the time in 2003. Unicron did have a lot of articulation on him. As far as articulation goes, Unicron, he can technically spin his head left and right on a ratchet joint, and that's a thing. Just like modern day Titan class Transformers, this is why I said that Supreme-class Transformers were precursors to Titans. Most of the articulated joints, like Titan-class figures, are ratchet joints on Supreme-class Transformers, so Unicron has the potential to spin his head 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise, but I recommend you be careful with his neck joint because he does have electronic lights and sounds on him. So one of the electronic lights that is on Unicron is his eyes will blink if you press a button on the top of his head, so they glow red, just like in the Armada cartoon. So that's a nice feature there. Before we move on to the other electronic lights and sounds, Unicron, his arms are on ratchet joints at the shoulders, so they have the potential to spin forward and backwards 360 degrees, but here's a quick look around at the back of Unicron. So he does have, you can remove the kibble on Unicron's back, such as the planetary ring and the two hemispheres that form his planet mode if you desire, but they are designed to just hang off the back of him like this. Yes, I believe in the Armada cartoon, the hemispheres were kind of stood up in the air like this on the back, making it look like he had a pair of wings on him. But because they're a little top heavy, and because the planetary rings don't like to lock in place properly, this is the best configuration that it will get for all of the kibble from his planet mode. So the arms have the potential to spin 360 degrees forward and backwards at the elbow. Heavy duty ratchet joint on the bottom of the elbow. Ratchet joint in the swivel joint in the bicep, so the arms can spin 360 degrees of bicep. Very heavy duty ratchet joints at the elbows. Swivel joints at the wrist, so the hands can spin 360 degrees clockwise and counterclockwise. That's something that wasn't found too often on Transformers Armada action figures. Unicron even has a waist swivel, so he can spin 360 degrees left and right. Universal joints in his legs, but you do have to move the hip skirts out of the way to get the leg to move forward. Very heavy-duty ratchet joints. They're very loud and clickety, so the legs can go forward and backwards pretty far. I won't show off the full range of motion just because it's late at night and I want my family to sleep without waking them up. Even more heavy-duty ratchet joints at the knees. You do have to utilize them when you transform Unicron back and forth from robot mode to planet mode. You do have a slight ankle rocker on the feet. Neat. And then because of a transformation joint, the feet can go up and down, and the toes can also they can move up and down independently, but they're not doing it on camera while I'm filming, of course, so that's a little problematic there. But yeah, one thing about Unicron's massive size is that something that is kind of the opposite of when you compare Titan-class Transformers with smaller sized Transformers figures today, such as Deluxes, Voyagers, or Leaders. Unicron has the most amount of articulated joints out of all of the Transformers action figures in the entire Armada line. So yeah, he is the most you can get Unicron into more action poses than any of the other Transformers Armada action figures, more so than any of the Autobots or Decepticons. So that's somewhat ironic that Unicron has the most articulated joints out of all the Armada Transformers action figures. One thing to note about Unicron is when he was released in the Armada line, Hasbro decided to acknowledge the fact that even though Unicron is the Chaos Bringer, he's the ultimate evil of the Transformers universe, Unicron technically is not a Decepticon, so Unicron, I believe he holds the title of being the first mass retail Transformers figure released by Hasbro that is factionless. Unicron does not have is not a part of any faction. He's not a Decepticon, he's not a Predacon, he's just himself, Unicron. So that's one thing to note about that. In the Armada line, when you got the Transformers Armada action figures, they came along with the instruction sheet with stickers showing the characters that you bought, and on the bottom corner of the stickers it showed the faction symbols if you got an Autobot or a Decepticon. But with Unicron, there was no faction symbol on his sticker, so he was not affiliated with the Autobots or the Decepticons. Now, the reason why the 3 Unicron trilogy cartoons of Armada, Energon, and Cybertron are named after Unicron here is because it was revealed that he was responsible for most of the events that happen in those 3 Transformers cartoon shows. Unicron is revealed, spoiler alert for no one who's watched Transformers Armada, it's revealed that the main faction of Transformers that were the focus of the Armada line, which were the Minicons, it's revealed that Unicron created them. And on that note, Unicron's Armada action figure can hold the most Minicons out of any Armada figure. In planet mode, Unicron can hold a maximum of up to 27 Minicons, and here in robot mode, Unicron can hold up to 35 Minicons, which is a majority of the Minicons that were released in the Armada line. So that is quite an impressive amount of Minicons that for any Transformers action figure to possess. Most of the Minicon ports are here on the planetary rings, but there's some located throughout Unicron in other parts. Some of them activate some of the gimmicks and features of him. And I'll get to those in just a moment. And so, just like Armada, Unicron also was responsible for the events that happened in the other 2 Unicron trilogy cartoons of Energon and Cybertron. Unicron, after he was defeated at the end of Armada, he tried to come back in Energon and tried to destroy the Transformers once again, but the Autobots and Decepticons managed to defeat Unicron at the end of Energon, and at the beginning of Cybertron, the destruction of Unicron's body created a black hole that threatened to devour the entire universe, and so trying to stop the black hole created from Unicron's destruction led to the events of Transformers Cybertron. So yeah, that's why those 3 Transformers cartoon shows are named the Unicron trilogy, because Unicron was responsible for all the events that happened in those 3 Transformers shows. Now, the Unicron trilogy holds a special place for me because Transformers Armada was the first ever cartoon show that I watched, and I actually did see Unicron on the shelf a couple of times when the Armada Transformers action figures were the main line of Transformers that Hasbro had out there. But at the time I was just a kid and my parents refused to spend the amount of money that Unicron cost, so I tried to wait to get Unicron on my birthday or at Christmas, but whenever I had enough money to buy him, he was always sold out, and when I didn't have enough money to buy him, that was when he would appear on the shelves. So it took 21 years, but the 21-year wait to finally have Unicron in my collection was worth it. One thing to note is that half of Unicron's parts basically all the parts of him that are supposed to be metallic blue. They're all clear plastic, such as the his robot mode chest. His abdomen piece right here is also clear plastic, and if you lower his pelvis, which you have to do for robot mode, Unicron's abdomen is actually a jail cell for a Minicon, so that's one of the spaces for the 35 Minicons you can store on him. There's also jail cells here in his lower arms, which is actually where you store his fists when you transform him from robot mode to planet mode. And he has 2 more jail cells. Those that can hold Minicons right here inside his legs. So that's how you get storage space for up to 35 Minicons on Unicron. So I showed off the light-up eyes for his gimmicks earlier. Another gimmick is that his right side hand also lights up. As you can see right there, it's a very bright LED light. You can see it most prominently if you open up Unicron's fingers. I'll activate it again for you guys one more time so you can see. So yeah, Unicron's hand can light up, and it's designed to mimic the energy attacks that Unicron used in the Armada cartoon. So that's really exciting. Hiding there. The other hand on Unicron does not light up. It's solid plastic, so that's why Unicron's hands are 2 different colors, in case you guys were wondering. Another feature of Unicron, which I apologize for not showing it off, but the springs are a little worn out, and so these pop off at a moment's notice. But if you take a Minicon and put it on this Minicon port right here, you can fire 6 missiles, 3 on each side of Unicron's lower legs, and those are weapons that Unicron can defend himself here, but the 6 missiles that Unicron has off of his, dangling here off of his shins, those missiles are not the biggest weapon that Unicron can hold. There's a minicon port here on the back of Unicron, and if you put the minicon in there, and in fact let's use Unicron's own minicon partner to show off this feature. If you put the minicon here on the back of Unicron, you'll activate Unicron's main weapon, which is a cannon that fires out of his chest. So, putting it in. So yeah, that was it. That was, sorry for that brief sound, but, yeah. So it activates a little sound which is a motorized spring. It doesn't really light up, but it shot out of there really fast for you to see. But yeah, here's the missile that stores inside Unicron's chest. The 3 black panels are on springs, so they automatically open up. See if I can clamp it down here and try and show you. So this is what the missile looks like when it's stored inside Unicron's chest. So, and there's 3 little yellow clips that keep it from going out all the way. So if you want Unicron's chest cannon to activate, once you activate, you can then put the missile back here, and then you can make it look like Unicron's firing his main weapon of his chest cannon. So that's really cool. And when you put it back in, it activates the glow. That's the light up eyes in Unicron's head. So that is pretty much all of the gimmicks that Unicron possesses. I apologize for not showing them off in greater detail, but you get the idea. Unicron, if you think you've found all of the weapons and all of the gimmicks that Unicron possesses, he will surprise you by showing off even more than you would have guessed. Now, setting Unicron off to the side for a moment, let's bring out his minicon partner. So another defining trait of the Armada line was that all of the Transformers action figures, the larger sized ones, Autobots, Decepticons, and Unicron, each one of them came with a small minicon partner that was used to activate all of the weapons and all the gimmicks that the action figures possessed. So when you bought a Transformers Armada action figure, you actually got 2 Transformers figures for the price of 1, and with the inclusion of the minicons. So Unicron's minicon partner is named Dead End. Like most of the minicons in the Armada line, Dead End shares his name with a Generation 1 Transformers character, since it was Hasbro's way of keeping a registered trademark on the name, aimed back in 2003. And Dead End transforms into because Unicron transforms into a planet, Dead End's alt mode, for those of you wondering, is supposed to be a moon with a cannon on top. So yeah, it's a death moon that is Dead End's alternate mode. So the idea is that Dead End orbits around Unicron and is a constant companion to him. In the Armada cartoon, it was shown that Unicron actually possessed multiple defense drones that acted sort of like antibodies, preventing intruders from entering his body from the outside. And that's what Dead End is based on, is the attack drones that Unicron used to fight off the Autobots and the Decepticons when they got onto the surface of him. So if you were able to find multiple copies of Dead End, then you can mimic his appearance in the Armada cartoon as being a series of drones defending Unicron. The drones were just like purple and gray. They weren't black and yellow like Dead End is, so they had a much more monochrome paint job than Dead End has. And they didn't transform, they just stayed like this in the sphere mode, blasting the cannons at everyone. So that's one thing Dead End has over the drones, is that he actually possesses a robot mode. Before we transform him, just for a size comparison, for those of you wondering what size of Transformers action figure minicon Dead End is, for a size comparison with another object that is sphere-shaped, here is Dead End next to a golf ball. So as you can see, he's slightly smaller than a golf ball, even with the cannon and on top. He's closer in size to a ping pong ball. But yeah, there's a Dead End next to a more common sphere-shaped object that you might have seen. So, transform Dead End. I'll show off the transformation, which I normally don't do on my videos for the sake of time, but Flip the bottom sections of the moon down and then rotate the yellow panels around to form his feet, and there's legs done. And his face just sticks out right here, so Dead End has visible head syndrome. His head doesn't transform at all. It doesn't even swivel left and right. And then move the cannon down like this. Bring this section up, and then rotate these sections around 180 degrees, and then bring them down like so. And depending on how you want to position the shoulders is up to you. But here, more or less, is Unicron's Minicon partner Dead End transformed into his bot mode. So yeah, nothing too grand about Dead End. Unfortunately, he has the same average amount of articulation that most Minicons possess. As the arms can go rotate at the elbow joint. They can go slightly up and down at the shoulder on the yellow hinge joint right here in the back. No waist articulation. The legs are attached on ball joints, but the ball joint has very limited motion. There's no way of moving the legs to the back due to the middle panel section here blocking the legs. There's somewhat of a knee bend, so Dead End can get his knees to bend 90 degrees ease, and then the toes of the feet can move up and down at the ankle joint since it's a ball joint, so slightly above average articulation for a Minicon from the Armada line. But yeah, but Dead End has always been one of my favorite Minicons. I really like his head sculpt. It's kind of somewhat similar to Generation 1 Shockwave, in which he has only one eyeball forming his face. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about Dead End and getting him transformed back. One nice thing about the Minicons and most of the Armada Transformers action figures is that the transformations are somewhat simplistic. When the Armada line was launched back in late 2001/early 2002, Hasbro wanted to go back to the way Transformers action figures had been designed in previous years where the transformations weren't too complex and they'd be easy enough for collectors of all ages to be able to transform. And so that's why most of the Armada action figures have articulation that rivals Transformers action figures that were released in the Transformers Generation 2 line 10 years earlier during the early 1990s, versus the more Transformers action figures with the more intricate transformations, such as those released during the Beast Wars and Beast Machines lines, and also the Car Robots / Robots in Disguise 2001 line. One last feature about Dead End is that you can make him transform a step farther and have his rotate the northern and top half of him around, so you can have him looking like this if you want. I just like to keep him in this configuration where his the yellow toes and the yellow shoulder joints of his robot mode are on the same side below the cannon. And the reason why is because when you transform Unicron into his planet mode, the special spot where Dead End sits, he sits better when when the lower half of him is rotated like this versus the other way. So just to give you a heads up on that, and if you ever decide to get Armada Unicron and add him to your collection. And for one last special size comparison, and here, just to show you how enormous of an action figure Armada Unicron is compared to more modern Transformers action figures. Here he is next to the Transformers Kingdom Core Class Megatron. This is the smallest Megatron action figure I have in my Transformers collection. This roughly is size accurate to how Unicron and Megatron appeared here beside each other in the Transformers Prime cartoon. And so yeah, Unicron is a large enough Transformers action figure that he can actually hold old Megatron in his hands if he desired. So yeah, he looks enormous enough that he can actually hold core class Transformers as if they were his own action figures. For another size comparison, with the only core class Galvatron figure I have here is Energon on Galvatron, which is slightly more appropriate for him to be here since he's also from the Unicron trilogy. So yeah, there's Unicron holding both Megatron and Galvatron in his hands just to show how enormous he is. So, for those of you wondering if Megatron and Galvatron are the most villainous Transformers characters, Unicron would definitely say no, that they are not. He in fact is the main bad guy of the Transformers franchise. So yeah, there's one last look at Unicron in his robot mode. Again, he's so enormous, I have to hold him really far back right here to try and get him on full frame in front of my camera. But yeah, I really love his face sculpt. And so, without further delay, let's get Unicron transformed into his alt mode and wrap up the review. Alright, and so coming in for an orbit around close up on my camera, here is Armada Unicron transformed into his alt mode of a planet. And yeah, he is just as massive as he was in robot mode. When you store Armada Unicron on a shelf space, you're supposed to have him sit flush like this, and as you flip him around here on the bottom, you fold out his robot mode pelvis, and then his robot mode thighs and the bottom of his waist form the flat platform that his planet mode sits on. So yeah, it's a pretty imposing looking plan, and depending on which angles you look at. One thing to note, and this was universally true on every copy of Unicron, if you transform him correctly, there's two little 3mm ports here on his robot mode ankle joints. They're supposed to plug into a pair of black 3mm pegs here on the top of the planet mode, but when you line the legs up properly, they don't quite reach as far as they're intended to. So if you think you've transformed Unicron incorrectly because those ports and pegs don't snap into place together, then don't worry, you haven't transformed Unicron incorrectly. They just the designers at Hasbro and Cartoni just couldn't figure out how to line it up properly. But yeah, here is Unicron in his planet mode, and most of the time in the Armada cartoon, when Unicron was in planet mode, he was shown in this direction right here, since this is technically the top of his planet mode. So he has one more gimmick where when you transform him into planet mode and you bring Unicron's horns together, you can see there he has a chomping jaw. The surface behind is unpainted black to show that it's what leads inside of him, so that's a call out to the Transformers Generation 1 version of Unicron, in which he ate planets that way. And you do have to do it by hand, using your hands, moving the horns open and closed manually. As you can see, this one copy of Unicron, which I did get off the internet used, it wasn't brand new, but as you can see, this one horn, the spring is starting to wear off after 21 years of usage. On this side, the horn, the spring is holding him in place pretty well, but the horn is kind of warped out of shape a little bit. It's probably just my eyes, but this horn feels like it's a little flatter than this one here. And just to note, the horns on Unicron, and also down here, the spikes that ended up on the lower arms of his robot mode, all the spiked parts of Unicron, including these tiny spikes that were here on the outside of his shoulder panels, these parts of Unicron are all rubbery plastic instead of solid plastic for safety reasons. So there is a fear, unfortunately, that over time, just like other Transformers action figures with rubber parts, these rubber bits could eventually disintegrate and crumble into nothing. So just note about that. The Unicron has parts made out of rubbery plastic, which are his right here, his robot mode shoulders, these 8 spikes here, which end up on his lower arms of his robot mode, and the 2 large horns horns here, and also the 2 horns that Unicron had in his robot mode. Oh, as you can see, right in there, there is Unicron's head sitting inside of him. So the 2 horns from his attached to his robot mode head, those are rubbery plastic as well. So just be careful with those with the pointy parts on Unicron, and also the these parts of the lower legs, and then of course the 2 halves, the 2 wings that form the hemisphere shape of Unicron's planet mode. They are a clear blue plastic, so just be careful with these parts potentially becoming brittle over time. Same thing with the 2 flat panels here on Unicron's robot mode pelvis. Those are clear plastic as well. Same thing with his robot mode abdomen. I showed that off briefly earlier. But the same, if you can find Minicons small enough to fit, the same gimmicks from robot mode, such as putting a Minicon port here, spring launching these yellow missiles out of Unicron. That gimmick is also utilized here. And then of course you've got, as I said, you've got Minicon ports galore on his planetary wings, and so in planet mode Unicron holds the title of being able to hold the most Minicons out of any action figure from the Armada line. He can hold 37 in total when he's in planet mode. Oh, so here is Unicron, and looking at him from the top, he's he is quite monstrous looking, and you would not want to fly towards this planet if you were traveling in a spaceship in outer space. Now, I said that Dead End has a special place to sit, which is the reason why in planet mode Unicron can hold up to 37 Minicons, and there's a carved out space right here on the planet mode with a Minicon port, and you're supposed to insert Dead End and have him sitting right there. So there's the spot that Dead End sits on. When you try and tilt Unicron forward and then shake him around a bit, it didn't happen that time, but Dead End doesn't really quite sit pegged into place on this Minicon port here on the spot for him. So if you were to, say, turn Unicron upside down, Dead End would end up flying off and out of there. So that's one thing to take note of. And like I said, you can also, if you want, store Dead End on any of the Minicon ports that Unicron has on his ring, so you can make it look like Dead End is orbiting around Unicron on serving him as a protector from any enemies that think that they can actually challenge Unicron to battle. But yeah, there is Unicron in his planet mode one last time. Sorry about that brief pause, but I almost forgot. For some size comparisons, here is Armada Unicron next to Kingdom Core class Megatron, so you can see, yeah, he's a pretty massive Transformers action figure. I mean, who do you think would win in a duel in Megatron versus Unicron? Yeah, no contest. Same thing with Galvatron for a size comparison here. So yeah, there's Unicron next to his first herald of Galvatron. And for some special size comparisons, here once again is Unicron next to a golf ball. And for another size comparison, here he is next to an 8-inch diameter basketball. As you can see, Unicron, he is a pretty massive planet. He's almost the size of between a basketball and a bowling ball. Also, yeah, he is enormous by all accounts. So, for the proverbial question, do I recommend getting Armada Unicron and adding him to your Transformers collection? I recommend getting the original Armada Unicron action figure above all of the action figures that are repainted and retooled from him, because ones that have been released in more recent years, there's some slight mold degradation here with the 2 hemispheres not wanting to clip in place properly. So the older versions of the mold are the better versions, since they didn't suffer any mold degradation. I also recommend getting the Armada Unicron action figure if you missed out on the HasLab Unicron and you don't have the shelving space for a Transformers action figure the size of that. I believe the Armada Unicron action figure is only a third the size of the HasLab Unicron action figure, so if you don't have the shelving space for HasLab Unicron, then the Armada version of him is a pretty decent sized action figure where he's enormous, but he's not too enormous for your collection, especially if you're low on shelving space like I am. And he is quite heavy. I mean, the reason why I keep setting Unicron aside is because my hand keeps getting tired holding him up in front of my camera for you guys. I mean, compared to the weight of this 8-inch basketball that I have, yeah, it's no contest. Unicron almost weighs 3, maybe 4 times heavier than this basketball does. So, yeah, he has quite a mass to him. He has a lot of heft, and that's one thing. One thing about Unicron is that parts on modern Transformers action figures that would be hollowed out, such as the inside of the legs or the toes, the back sides of the arms, parts that are hollowed out now on Transformers action figures, they are solid chunks of plastic here on Armada Unicron. I mean, look here at the back of his feet. As you can see here, there's no hollowed gaps, there's no hollowed out spaces, even with the bottom of his upper legs forming the base of the planet mode. There's no hollowed out parts on here, and the only reason why these parts on the back of the robot mode shoulders are hollowed out is because that's just to allow articulation for the arms in robot mode. So yeah, Unicron is a solid built Transformers action figure, and that's one thing to note about the action figures released in the 3 Unicron trilogy lines of Armada, Energon, and Cybertron. In more recent years, with Transformers action figures being downsized and becoming smaller, today the Unicron trilogy Transformers action figures, they now hold the title of being the physically largest and bulkiest and most sturdily built Transformers action figures compared to other lines of Transformers. So yeah, they're among the strongest built Transformers action figures in my personal opinion. And so yeah, if you're a fan of Unicron and you missed out on the HasLab Unicron action figure, then I highly recommend getting a copy of the Armada Unicron action figure if you can. If you get a hold of one of the more recently released versions of this, more recently released repaints or retools of Armada Unicron, I recommend avoiding the Transformers Platinum Edition Unicron action figure. That figure has really terrible mold degradation, which is a shame because it's one of the retools that's the retool parts make Unicron look more like his Generation 1 action figure than his the version of him from Transformers Armada. So yeah, that's one thing to note about that. But yeah, overall, as far as an appropriate action figure for the main villain of the Transformers franchise, the Armada Unicron action figure still holds up well. And apparently, like I said, Hasbro and Takara Tomy, after designing this thing, thought that it was enough of a groundbreaking Unicron action figure that there was no new action figure of Unicron on design since the HasLab figure was released in 2022, 9 years after this one was released. So yeah, that's pretty impressive there. So thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TFangy. This has been my rather lengthy review of the Transformers Armada Supreme Class Unicron action figure. This is one of the best Transformers action figures ever made. 8 if I'm being honest. I cannot stress enough how incredible of an action figure Armada Unicron is. So thank you guys all so much. It's just about midnight, so the date will change from December 30th to December 31st of 2024. So the year 2024 will be gone in a little more than 24 hours from now. So I probably won't get to my list of best Transformers action figures of 2024 that were actually released in 2024, such as the figures in the Transformers Legacy United line, such as I'm trying to point to the Leader Class Tigerhawk and Sandstorm figures behind me as an example. There's also over my shoulder here, there's the Studio Series TF1 Optimus Prime and Megatron figures. So yeah, I probably won't get to my best 24 action figures of 2024 until New Year's Day. I'll see if I'll have the time to record one final video tomorrow on New Year's Eve for December 31st of 2024. But thank you guys all so much for watching. This has been the TF Geek, and this has been my 666th video on my channel, in which I appropriately decided to do a review of one of my favorite purchases of 2024, Transformers Armada Unicron. Thank you to all my subscribers and friends for your continued support, and until next time, you guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and if I don't see you again, and before January 1st, Happy New Year to everyone. Transform and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.